salutations, it's me, Salty. Welcome back to Jason Toys, and today we're going over the 1000 Toys Abe Sapien. I picked this up at a local shop called the Toy Vault for $84.99. I know the price tag's kind of washed out, but it's there. I'd never heard of this brand before. They had it on a shelf with all their Mezco, and I was like, oh, cool, Mezco Abe Sapien, and found out that it's not Mezco, but I was like, oh, close enough. It's my first time experiencing this toy line, so that's kind of fun. But I'm a big fan of Hellboy, and Abe Sapien is one of my favorite characters from that comic book. I'm very eager to go over this, but looking at it, this is a slipcover, and we have Abe Sapien on the front of it. On the side, it's all blue with part of the BPRD symbol embossed on it. The other side is just blue. And on the back of the slipcover, we have a continuation of the BPRD symbol and this lovely artwork of Abe Sapien. Remaining on the back and removing the slipcover, we get Hellboy and director and engineering and all that. I like this kind of stuff. Lets you know who made what and who's responsible for what. Side of the box is BPRD. Same on the other side. Top of the box is Hellboy. Bottom of the box is more legalese crap. And then we have Abe Sapien and all the accessories without the slipcover. So with all that out of the way, I'm going to get them open. We'll look at all the accessories, go over articulation, look at the sculpt and all that. Kicking off the list of our many accessories, here's the harpoon, which has some nice kind of wood grain sculpting. I like the rope and some nice kind of washing or just direct paint application. I think this turned out very great. I think it looks kind of comic book accurate, or at least stylistically accurate, if that makes sense. However, due to the kind of size of this handle, there's not very many hands that it'll fit into. There's technically only two, one of these for the left and the right. So that's kind of what you're left with, if you want it to be gripped, that is. And here we have his Glock, which is just cast in black. You know, nothing really too outrageous about it. Fits down into a separate holster with a BPRD symbol on it. The strap only goes over part of it and it pegs into the belt. And with only a slight struggle, it'll fit into both trigger hands. There's one for the left and the right. We also have a knife, which I like the silver on it. I think the paint was applied very well here. There's only minimum bleeding there at the top of the handle. And there's a sheath for it, which is only mildly sculpted for it, but you can fit the knife in either way. It sticks out a little bit more that way, but it'll fit either way, and it also pegs into the belt. I mentioned them briefly, but there's a trigger hand for the left and the right. And I mentioned these as well. Here's the gripping hands for the harpoon. They have just enough room for the harpoon to fit. And there's two more gripping hands for the left and the right. These are meant for the knife, and I saved these to talk about these on their own for this reason. The handle and the grip are very snug, so they will fit, but this is a very hard plastic. So if you go to kind of force it, you may end up snapping it. So you kind of have to push at the handle and push the hand with equal pressure to get them to kind of slide down in there. You hear all those kind of clicks and all that. Yeah, it's a very tight fit, but it will go in there. So, and he can hold it, very snugly. Just something to be cognizant about because of the plastic used here. And also, I wouldn't go trying to pull, like you might snap the blade. I would just put your thumb at the bottom and push. Hurts a little bit, putting that much, pressure on that finer point on your thumb, but at least that way it gives you something to grab onto, so you can kind of, wedge them apart. Then we have two kind of relaxed hands for the left and the right. They could be for holding or whatever. And what I meant by two gripping hands for the harpoon is that, clearly, this will fit pretty much anything, but it won't grip onto it, just for your own edification. But we have one for the left and the right. Same thing with the harpoon in these hands. These are more kind of reaching hands, grabbing hands, swimming hands, wherever you want to call them. But, they actually sculpted lines into the palms. I like to see that, and there's a bit of a wash done on them. And that leaves us with Abe himself, and there's some great sculpt work on here, and some great detail. Like there's all those lines on his face, his cheekbones, his shoulders, down on the forearms. He doesn't look 100% like he came off the comic book page, because Mike Mignola's artwork is a little more rudimentary, I guess, for the lack of a better word, and I mean that as a compliment. Like, I'm not slamming the guy. I love his artwork. This is very much a cleaner representation of Abe. But we have some lovely sculpt in that paint on the vest, made it look like leather. It's plastic, but it looks like leather. His BPRD badge came out great. There's not a lot of paint bleed at all. Buttons are painted. All the pockets and everything on the belt are painted. The loop, his watch, and the paint application on all this is very clean. I don't have any bleeding anywhere. So even the lines on his trunk's down there, and the lines continue on to his legs and everything. So he's got a big BPRD symbol there, and what's not evident by looking at him through the window is his gills and his fins. And I think those turned out really great. And they did something unique I've never seen before with articulation, and we'll talk about it when we go over that, but it involves the shoulders, and it is kind of interesting. And on the back of the belt here, you can see where the holster and the knife sheath peg in. So those are your two options for that. And that's what that looks like. which I think is a weird way to have that pistol. Maybe he's a southpaw and he's doing a weird kind of cross draw or something. I don't know. That's weird to me, but it's the way it pegs in. I don't know what else to tell you. Also, the vest is removable. I will show you that before we go over articulation. There's a split here in the side, and I'm used to like it, having a flap or something. These actually just peg in like that. They look like kind of like ribs, but they peg in instead of having like a flap like I'm used to. And that's the same on both sides. And here's Abe without his vest on. We get more detail, like the lines and all that. Now, the belt, however, is not removable because it's actually part of him. Like it's part of the sculpt. Even though this feels like a hard plastic, it's not coming off at any time soon because it's like attached right there. That is to say that technically you can remove it, but it's not advised. There's seam lines on the back of these pockets, but it is glued down, so it's one of those like you could technically remove it, but you're not supposed to, if that makes sense. First, I'll do articulation without the vest on so we can see the ab crunch and all that kind of stuff, and then I'll put it back on. But since we're about to go over it, I'm going to go ahead and mention it now. I don't know if you've seen me kind of squeezing this, but this is all a rubber overlay on his chest and his stomach, and the shoulders are also a rubber overlay. Like this is all silicone and mesh and squish, and as are his gills. As you can see, there's a split there where it's made out of silicone. But let's go ahead and go over articulation. With that, he looks up that far, looks down that far, side to side, tilt, shoulder spin 360, comes up at a 90, and this is the rubber shoulder pad I was telling you about, which if you peel it, you can see the shoulder joint. Gives you a better look right there. It's on a ball. While it's not a butterfly joint, the shoulder can pivot on that ball. It won't butterfly like that, but it will rotate, if that makes sense. Unrelated to that shoulder, there's a bicep swivel. Double joint in the elbow, comes all the way up so he can punch himself in the head, which that's one of my only gripes is that right there, sticking out of the elbow. And then he has the dreaded peg ball peg in the wrist, which I hate, but his is easier to manipulate. So, back and forth, and then you just do that, and then rotate, and then the hand spins, and you have up and down. Like, his are way easier to manipulate. Leans forward that far, but his little overlay does pop out a little bit. Leans back that far, but again, he splits. If you go too far, you can, pop him off. So that's what it looks like under there. Gets a ton of side to side, as you might imagine. Some very rubbery sounding swivel. Kicks forward that far, kicks back that far, kicks out to almost a 90. By swivel. Double joint in the knee comes up that far, and it would come up further if it weren't for the fin. And then he has the peg ball peg in the foot. If you work with it, it'll spin at the top. It has a rocker at the other end of it. And of course the pivot, so just get it whichever way you want it to go. And then a toe pivot. With his vest back on, it doesn't affect the head or the neck articulation at all because there's enough clearance. And it doesn't affect the shoulders either, but that's all the further he can lean forward, all the further that he leans back, and he loses his side to side. It limits the articulation, but it does stop you from hyperextending and popping him off like that. Not that you can't pop them back together like I showed you, but, that is something to think about. Unfortunately, that's the best he can get when he aims, and that's called T-cupping, and I do not approve of that method, but they didn't give him a proper left hand for gripping. When it comes to sights, like, you could probably kayfabe it, but he's not going to be able to actually look down the sights and aim, unfortunately. Like, you could probably fake it like that in a display or for photos, but that's going to look like that, and I don't know. That kind of stuff's important to me. For height comparisons, there he is next to Destro and Trapjaw, just to kind of give you an idea how he might flush into a 5.5 or 6 inch display. And that's really all I got for today. I like the action figure. I love the sculpt and the paint. I think the accessories are good. It comes with a good amount of hands. I think the price is a little high on it. I don't know what original retail was, because this is the store I got it from is kind of like a reseller store. I'm not sure if they get the stuff new in stock for them or if they're dealers or what, but price is a little high, but it is an import, so I understand part of that is an import tax. But let me know what you think down below, what you think about Hellboy or Abe Sapien. If you like the Hellboy comics, who's your favorite character? Would you pay the almost $90 for this figure, would you pass on it, all that kind of stuff. If it's your first time on the channel today and you like what you saw, then all that asks is that you click like on the video and subscribe to the channel. It's a great way to help me out, and I very much appreciate it when you do. It means a lot to me, it really does. And I thank you all for stopping by and spending some time with me today. So, until next time, I'm Salty, signing off.